Don't even think about saving for a home without doing these things first. In this video, I'm going to share how you need to prepare to give yourself the opportunity to buy a home in the future. But there's a couple things I'm going to touch on off the bat that nobody talks about that you need to do first before you even think about saving for a home. This is an in-depth video so that you can understand both your current financial position, but also how to prepare yourself now so that you're in a better position in the future, not just to buy a home, but for the rest of your life, which is why the first couple of things I'm going to share have nothing to do with your future home, but they are imperative that you have in place before you think about taking that next step. Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan Lerner with the Vancouver Life Real Estate Group and eXp Realty, bringing you valuable real estate content to help you understand the market, navigate it, and help you understand how to make the best decisions when it comes to buying and selling a home or an investment property. All right, if you get value from these things, please make sure to like, to subscribe, to click the bell so you get notified of future videos. And if you know anyone that would share or that would gain value from this video, please make sure to click that share button below and share that link out. Buying a home is one of the most life-altering decisions an individual or a family can make. In today's market, it often takes people years or even decades to save up enough for a down payment, but you also don't need the full 20% like most people think is required. I'll touch on that a little bit later in the video. At the same time, you want to ensure that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket and end up being house poor and putting yourself at risk and just plain not being able to enjoy your life and socializing with friends and family because you don't have the money because it's all going towards your mortgage and repairs and things like that. I'm going to lay out several options for preparing yourself for buying a home. Some are going to be applicable for every situation and some will only be applicable if you're buying within a couple of years from now. Step number 1, have an emergency fund. This has nothing to do with saving for a home, but it is what you need to save for in advance of saving for a home. You need to have an emergency fund, whether you are renting, whether you are owning, because what it does for you, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, set aside, you do not touch except for emergencies that come up. Maybe it's your car breaks down, you need to put $1,500 into it. Maybe there's a water pipe break and you have to replace certain belongings or items or a computer and you need to replace that. That is where the emergency fund money comes from. And then as soon as that gets spent on say it was $1,500 out of $3,000 that you had set aside, your very first action is to replenish and replace that $1,500. So you get that full emergency fund and you're not spending anything until that emergency fund is full and topped out for what your needs are. And depending on where you are, depending on what your spending habits are, what your living expenses are, you need to gauge what that emergency fund amount needs to be. But it is super crucial so that you don't end up in a bind when something happens. Step number 2 in buying for a home, you need protection. Yes, that has absolutely nothing to do with saving for a home, but you need protection. Life insurance, income protection, critical illness and disability, insurance for your kids. There are just so many options out there, but I want to make this super clear. There are different kinds of insurance, and many of them are actually investments that you will get back with interest in the future. All right, so it's really important for you to dive into understanding and meeting with professionals who can help guide you through this. Most people right now don't have protection. And if you dive into a home and your budget is tight as a result of the mortgage payments and everything, then you'll be even less likely to take that next step and protect yourself and your family and your kids or your future family. So it's so important to get that into place now and have that be a line item on your budget so that you maintain that even as you go into a home. It is so important because if something happens, you want to make sure that you're protected and your family is protected, even if you're single, because you don't want people coming after your family to try and get things that you owe. All right. Diving into the different types of insurance is beyond the scope of this video, but if you need recommendations for a financial advisor or someone that can guide you through that, reach out to me at the contact info down below and I can absolutely connect you with someone. Let's move on to the specific steps that you need or truly should have in place to make the reality of owning a home come true. The first 2 steps had nothing to do with owning a home, but are so important to have in place before you take that next step. And these following steps are, okay, now that we have that in place, let's move on and let's actually look at saving up and making this first purchase for a home a reality. Step number 3 in preparing to buy a home, This is the one that nobody likes. It's not fancy, it's not sexy, and for most people, it's not fun in any way, but it is essential, and that is having a budget. All right, you've all heard it before, but we know that if you're going into a massive purchase, this is likely the biggest investment of your life or in most people's lives, and we have to have a budget in place to know where our money is going. You have to know what's coming in, what's going out, and what's left over at the end of the month. Hopefully there is some left over at the end of the month. All right. Now you can go old school with it, pen and paper or Excel sheets, but that is time consuming. However, it allows you to know that every expense is tracked exactly as it should be. But to make life a lot easier, most people just need a good general idea to start. All right. And the easiest way to do all that is to have it tracked automatically with the right app on your phone. All right, you link your bank accounts, you link your credit cards to the app, and the app tracks every single purchase and expense that you make, so you see all the money that's going out. Typically, most people, the income coming in is pretty simple to be able to track, but it's all the expenses and the small transactions that are going out every single day, week, and month that are a little bit harder to add up. So you link all those accounts, and the app tracks it automatically for you. Now, there's different apps out there, and each has different functionalities based on your needs. I've included a link in the description for the top 7 apps for budgeting as recommended by Wealthsimple, so check out the link in the description down below for that. Without knowing what you have left over at the end of the month, you have no solid understanding of the state of your finances and where and how much that you can save, invest, or pay off to be able to put you in a better financial position, both in your own accounts, but also from the bank's perspective of being able to borrow money. So make a commitment, check out those links for those app trackers, and set reminders at a minimum of monthly, ideally weekly, to be able to review your numbers and know where your money is going, what's coming in, what's going out, and what's left over. And the more you do this, the faster you'll be able to get towards those goals. Step number 4 is improving your credit. Again, not something that's sexy, not something that's fun, but the prior step of budgeting is so important to be able to improve this. Your credit score and the credit report are some of the first things that a mortgage lender is going to look at when they're evaluating you for a mortgage. In Canada, the 2 main credit bureaus are Equifax and TransUnion, and they basically express credit scores within a range of 300 to 900. The closer you get to 900, the better your score. Very few people are in the 900 range, so don't worry about trying to get up into that 900 range, just so you know. Lately, I've been using a website called Credit Karma, and basically they send weekly updates where you can check your score super easily. But just know, use it more as a gauge and the direction of where you're heading as opposed to exactly what your credit score is. If you want that, you have to rely on Equifax and TransUnion for more specific numbers. But you don't really need to pull that credit score more than every 3, maybe 6 months if things have been fairly consistent for you. Many factors go into calculating your credit score, and including when you opened all the accounts that you have, whether that's checking, savings accounts, credit cards, how much you owe on every debt that you have, how long you've owed that for, have you missed any payments or have you made partial payments, all those different things. Have you gone over your credit limit and had charges like that? All those things go into your credit score. The number one thing that hurts you is missed payments, all right? That is the number one thing that will hurt you, so make sure that you always hit those payments every single month. As soon as you start seriously considering home ownership, take the opportunity to know what your credit score is. The more familiar that you are with your score and the accompanying credit reports that come with it, the better you're going to be able to make positive changes to bring your score up. And that you should also double check the report to make sure that all your information is correct and accurate, and that there's no erroneous information that could undercut your score as well. So just something to be aware of as you look at that. Step number 5 on how to buy a home is you want to work to minimize your debt to income ratio. All right. It's basically another financial factor that's important to mortgage lenders. And the number compares how much money you owe versus your total income. So if your debt to income ratio is low, that basically means that you can easily pay your bills and reach your financial goals. But when your debt to income ratio is high, you're spending more money than you can afford and essentially are left with very little for saving at the end of the month. So if you want to know what your debt to income ratio is, if you're in Canada, just go to debt.ca and click on the calculators, and I've included a direct link in the description down below, so go and check that out to see what your debt to income ratio is. Now the big question is, what is a good number? So good number, you are in the good category if you're 36% or less. Manageable category is 37 to 42. Causes for concern from the mortgage lender perspective is being in a debt to income ratio of 43 to 49%. And dangerous, which basically somebody's not going to lend to you, is if you are at 50% or more. Even though 36% or less is good, lenders typically like to see it under 28%. Now that doesn't remove you from lending if you're above that, but you are a greater risk in their eyes. It's important to note that having a high debt to income ratio may not be an immediate cause for concern, because it really depends on your age, where you are in your career, the length of time in your industry, etc. For example, if you're a millennial who lives in a metropolitan city like Vancouver BC, where I am, or other areas where rents are high, and your peak earning years are still ahead of you, it's understandable and expected from the lender perspective that you'd have a higher debt to income ratio. So you should be able to manage it as long as interest rates don't shoot up and you continue to steadily increase your pay, meaning your salary, your income that you get on a yearly basis. However, if you're a baby boomer or nearing retirement and you're on a fixed income, a high debt to income ratio can actually be really concerning from the lender and require further attention to help get your debts under control, or you may have to pursue some alternative lenders for that. Either way, you want to work on seeing where you can make money in your job or on the side, or figure out how you can work on paying down your debts to improve that ratio. Step number 6 on how to prepare to buy a home is to actually start saving for your down payment. Now, you've probably started doing that as you've been going through the prior steps, but now we have to go through the process of actually saving for that down payment. But the number one thing I want to get across is the myth of a mandatory 20%. You only need 20% if your purchase price for a property is $1 million or more. If you're at $999,999, you do not need 20% down. Your minimum down payment is 5% up to $500,000. Say your purchase price is $800,000, then you just need to cover 10% of that remaining $300,000, that amount above $500,000 to your purchase price. So it's 5% up to $500,000, and then you pay 10% on the $300,000 above that $500,000 mark. So that's your minimums in terms of a down payment. Now, if you do anything less than 20%, it is mandatory that you get mortgage default insurance. Mortgage default insurance is going to vary depending on the bank and the lender in terms of how much is added on top of what your contract rate is. So maybe you're getting a interest rate of 4%. You're going to be likely a minimum of 2.5% above 4%. As a result of mortgage default insurance. So yes, it is more costly. You do pay more interest on a property that you put less than 20% down. But number one, it allows you to get in the market. And number two, it allows the banks and the lenders to be okay with giving you money, because they know that if you default, the banks will still get their money back for the property. You're at a greater risk by putting 5% or 10% or 15% down. So as a result, the banks need you to have insurance to minimize their risk in lending you money. Step number 7, save money for the inspection, the closing costs, legal fees, taxes, etc. All right, so inspection, you're gonna budget about $300 to $1,000 on average, depending on the size of the home. If you're looking at a 1 or 2 bed condo, you're under the $500 mark, just so you know. Legal fees, somewhere in the range of $1,500 to $3,000. It's going to depend on the mortgage financing and other aspects with respect to your financial situation, how things are structured with the deal. Property transfer tax. This is the biggest one that people are not aware of, and it surprises a lot of people. On an average $800,000 purchase here in Vancouver, you'd be looking at an approximate $14,000, and really this needs to be in cash. It cannot be rolled over into your mortgage. If you want more details on property transfer tax, make sure that you click the question mark. It should be up in one of these corners of the screen to watch my video on a detailed video on property transfer tax and how that works and how it is calculated. But just know that needs to be in cash. You need to have that outside of your down payment and making sure that you're not diving into your emergency fund from step number 1 to be able to make that happen. All right. Step number 8, save more money. All right. And what I mean by that is for the moving costs and for new furniture, because you know that every time you move into a new place, you're buying new furniture. You want to be able to maximize the space. You want to be able to make it your own. And it's always going to cause you to have to get new furniture. So saving money for that. And the other side of it, if you're going into a spot where you need to maybe not necessarily get the turnkey property and you're going to have to do some work and renovations, make sure that you have money set aside for that as well to be able to put that into fixing up your place before you move in. So making sure that you have all those finances laid out in place and you have an idea of what you're willing to spend for that. All right, the final step, step number 9, I want you to breathe and relax. All right, go step by step. There's a lot that I talked about in here, and there's a lot that I talked about that is probably more money that you didn't anticipate when it comes to buying a home and the fees and the taxes and everything that's involved in that. If you're not buying for a year or more, then take this step by step and just start slowly and go through it methodically so you feel very comfortable. If you're hoping to buy as soon as possible or in the coming 3 to 6 months and you haven't done these or you haven't saved up quite enough money, then the number one thing I can just absolutely urge you is do not buy at the max of the budget of what the bank is willing to give you. All right, you're just going to end up being absolutely house poor and not being able to live the life that you want, not being able to go out and socialize with your friends, not being able to eat out, and you're going to be stuck living on ramen and instant noodles and craft dinner. All right, it's not a good space to be in. And so making sure that you've done the budget and you know exactly what you can handle on a monthly basis so that you know the purchase price and the monthly budget that will go along with that and what not to go above. You also want to make sure that you allow some wiggle room that if your payments do increase, that you have the ability to afford that. So make sure you bring your own purchase price down. Have your own ceiling, your own limit, not what the bank has given you. All right, you have to set that limit for yourself. That is the steps, 9 steps on how to prepare to buy a home. I know that was a long video. I know that was a lot of detail and video. If you need help or if you need clarification on any of these, if you need me to put you in contact with anyone, please reach out to my contact info down below this video. And if you gain some value from this, please subscribe to the channel because I got more videos coming, and click the bell so you're notified when these new videos come out as well. And if you know anyone that would gain some value, anyone that might be looking to buy a home themselves, please click the share button down below this video and send that link to them so that they can gain value from this video as well. Have an amazing day, and I'm looking so forward to being able to chat with you in your specific situation or being able to help someone that you know. Have an amazing day. See you in the next video.